Call the September 18th services committee. Anybody circumstances, let us know. Maybe attending remotely. All that happens. I got a motion. That's it. Yep. Evening. First resolution is modifying the 2023 budget for social services, New York State Rental Supplement Program. Seconded by
So the resolution is for the 2023-2024 rental supplemental program, assists families eligibility requirements, additional rental assistance. That's directly from the state, about 309,000. Any money left over with this current year. The following.
any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
So, as you're aware, we're already paying services eligibility for going over the stats. On the first page, the most significant to notice is decrease total referrals as well as children for August, which we've already seen the school, schools have back to more normal levels. On the second page, the average caseload has crept up a little bit. And we'll touch base on this a little bit later in the stats, but we have workers, training, or have completed or will be work, which should bring those back. Once they get trained, we get on page 3, we are still noticing the decline in total care. We expect that to continue as well. Page 4. Everything is remaining within average as far as you adopted foster care for that case of something that really is standing out. Everything's moving in the direction. And then finally on page 5, again, we are continuing to see adoption taking place. It's helping us to reduce care. We're also noticing that PSS staff is getting more visitation. And then finally on page 6, what I wanted to highlight here, which we talked about earlier, number of case workers, both for foster care preventative, both for now coming out of training in October, one additional staff, case workers in training. Having those.
Any questions, Ms. Garrett?
I just have one question about on the adoption. April, it says 57 children paid for adoption. 62. Is that just a running total? Like as of today, there are 56 children.
So this will, obviously not.
Yes. Probably. So, I will have to discuss.
The exit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a statewide issue. Down in ISAC, every county has the same issue in many different departments.
Solution.
Could you give us some information about how successful countywide the lead abatement program was going?
Right.
And then it came from the this was very similar to same thing with the it's something. Period. In addition, that's what vehicle.
So you said we're missing about 55% of kids. Why is that?
In part, it needs to, so if you're familiar with the New York State Education program, so even though it's mostly for immunization, it also works.
As far as how did the children first come to our? Which is detected. And what I'm getting at is when a child is born, one of the area hospitals, is the child tested for lead?
No, so the recommendation for the
Pardon me?
at 8 months.
So how do we get the kids tested when they're 1 or 2?
So it's supposed to be part of the well child visit, which is also when you start to provider and asking that, which is also in addition to the. Yeah. You or it also. Up. Very
So is there any, are we looking at any way of making it easier for the families to get their children tested? And what are we doing to make sure that our providers throughout the county are participating in the program to get these kids identified? Because we've got a lot of older homes in this county, and though there's probably lead, some.
Yeah, so one of the suggestions that we have is that with the provider is us change the work. Have that. Seems that important, yeah. But provider, the test. And we're also working out as well. What is the offer? With the. Have.
Thank you.
So I was just gonna say, one of the things in the community that we're working on is you order in your office, and then it's gotta go 6 blocks to the lab. Some parents just don't go that day, and then they've got other stuff. So one of the things that we encounter is because of CLIA, 1988, there's only so many lab tests that you can do point of care in your office at the same time. And if you have to pick up another one, that you have to keep, that's what's you have to keep. One of the other things that we thought of was getting the sample like in a microtube and sending the microtube to the lab if we draw labs there anyway. That would increase. But we should also see if we can talk to the Department of Health about them doing some sort of culling out of the statistics of kids over 21. You know, if we're not carrying them, that's when they age out. But if the offices don't delete them out of their profile, maybe the state itself could run a subset of that number 21 over and delete them out. You might find that our actual rate that we're testing is higher. But in larger cities, they do all the lead levels right in the office, whether they collect them in a microtube, or they can send them, or they have a point of care there.
You'll have to excuse me if my hearing might be a little bad, but your voice is a little low, or our mics aren't working worth a darn. But I seem to recall that you mentioned something about missing children. We're missing them, and I think you gave a number.
Yeah.
How do you come up with that number? Is that just a guess, an estimate, a guesstimate? Or is there some empirical formula that you use based upon the numbers of confirmed cases that you have?
Yeah, so it's based upon the numbers that we get. It's just. Give us an idea that.
Okay, so maybe you can't, if I may, maybe you can't answer this or don't know the answer at all, but based on perhaps records that are kept in public health, have you been able to confirm those numbers with the new cases that come in? And then extrapolate from that, those new cases, what you figure you're missing?
Yeah, so the figures, the 45 and 51 figures, those are the.
Right. Okay. So it's nothing that is 100% accurate. It's a best estimate that you can come up with based upon something. So it might be higher, might be lower. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Just as a note in regards to lead, I know now that there are municipalities that are doing an upgrade to the water systems. That's one of the requirements. Done. To determine. No. Two of the towns in my, the only reason I know is two of the towns in my district, raise their water systems. Part of the requirement.
I know they have to go in and check for the fire extinguishers and, you know, all this stuff. Thank you.
In the past, I've heard that there's been some advisories, warnings on eating certain things like fish from Lake Ontario. Are you aware of any that are currently in effect, or how are those things like that going?
For any contamination or for lead?
Yeah, for any, but particularly the lead, I think has been a concern in the past, and particularly in Lake Ontario.
I'm not aware of any contamination notifications. Not to say that there aren't any out there currently. I'm just.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Carly. Appreciate it. All right, next we have community services resolutions. Okay. First resolution is modifying the 2023-2024 budget for the community services Stop DWI program to accept the aid to localities, Stop DWI program distribution from the state of New York Governor's Traffic Safety Committee. Motion, current, second by Mr. Ledford.
Good evening. So the Governor Traffic Safety Committee has awarded WWI program to the county $2,500. This is because of the decrease in air driving fines that have been collected and sitting across the state. So we get $2,500 for that. For equipment, education, materials, services, training. That has to be 100% related to the impaired driving program. It also be used for I know we're asking inspectors money modify.
Any discussion? Dave, do you know what precipitated the decline in these DWI, I guess, revenues, but fees being levied? Is it reduction in we have fewer drunk drivers on the road, or is it some other factor?
Well, I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I don't know if sometimes the courts follow through like they should with
Mr. Forsyth?
Just my observation over the last few years, there's a lot more designated driver programs for these young adults. In my day, you didn't even hear of it. Today you hear it. So I think it does work, so.
All right, all in favor of this?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next we have a resolution to modify the 2023 budget for community services for an outreach and engagement clinic model grant. Making a motion to start second by Mr. Perkins and Mr.
So this is a sister resolution to the one that was passed last month that authorized the chair to sign a contract with the LACES for this outreach and engagement grant. So we were awarded $489,614. The 2-year grant, but it stands over a 3-year period. So it starts October 1st of this year and ends. So the bulk of the funding will be used to hire 2 care coordinators that will service the addiction clinics, the opioid use disorders, folks that we provide services to. So care coordinators are, I guess you kind of would say they're kind of the boots on the ground, and they're kind of community-based. They go in and meet with people, not just in the clinic, but also sometimes that needs to place. And try to get them services, try to get engaged. So it runs a little bit parallel to the peer services that we have as well. So it's just going to, increase our ability to try to engage and provide services for people. We designated approximately $50,000 to $53,000 for client service dollars, so that can be used for having trouble paying their rent, for bedding, could be used for maybe riots. So we're asking, to modify the budget. It's funding for this purpose.
Within that grant, the parameters of it, is there anything that addresses what happens after September of 2025 with respect to the program? Will we be required, will the counties be required to continue that program as it was conceived and put into practice?
No, not necessarily. That would be certainly up to the board in terms of those 2.
Okay.
So this will give us an opportunity, and we have a care coordinator on the mental health side. And typically, she's pretty much revenue neutral. She pays for herself. So we'll be able to tell during the period of this grant, if that's holds true with this, and we'll present that to the board. They can decide whether they want to continue these budget or not.
Okay. So what criterion will you use to make that judgment?
Well, it would be based on their salary and fringe. We probably wouldn't take into the account any of these other expenses. It would be their salary and fringe based on the revenue each year.
Well, what I meant was continuing the program. How are you going to judge its success or its failures? Going forward to make a valid determination whether you want to keep the program or not after the expiration of this grant.
Well, I mean, and it could be reflected in, the attendance to clinic services, could be reflected in increase of population of homeless. A lot of different metrics that providing quality services.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gray.
Jenny, the care coordinators, what are the qualifications and you anticipating?
Requires a bachelor's degree, and you have to go through training care coordinators. So, I mean, there's quite a few care coordinators already exist within the county with other agencies through the health homes. But there's a separate training in addition to having a bachelor's degree specifically to become a care coordinator. that's offered by the health office. Likewise, the supervisor that oversees the care coordinator also has to go through training.
Is that-
Well, I mean, no, it's a formalized training, but then certainly, you know, they take that training and they try to implement that in the field, but if they don't have prior experience, then, you know, there would be a learning curve even with the training.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Next we have a statistics update, community services. I know we've discussed some of the adjustments and cleanup of some of the stats. Jay, is there anything notable you want to highlight for them?
Well, just overall, there was some slight increases across the board, you know, in the product. That were served this month. Go to the bottom of page 2, percentage of dollars paid of billed services. We have two terms that we use. One is called customary rates, and the other is contractual rates. So these numbers are higher. These percentages of bills that were paid are higher this month than previous months because we actually use the contractual rate, which we know that we're going to get rather than the customary rate, which is a higher, submitting a higher claim, you know, to fill the gap in the event that an insurance company would pay higher than the state rates. But if you recall, we've done some write-offs, end of year write-offs for community service clinics. And, you know, some of them were upwards to $1 million that we wrote off. And that's because we are actually billing insurances at a higher rate than we anticipated ever getting remittances for payments. So this reflects more accurately what we're billing out. Like with the OTP, 70% is Fidelis, which is Medicaid managed care. And then another percent, about 5% of that would be healthcare or Optum, and their Medicaid managed care. They're bound by the state. So that's the lion's share of the payers that we first for on the eviction side. The eviction side has a higher rate of Medicaid mental health. Of course,
That's an interesting point. I think when you develop your budget revenue based on that higher percentage or based on the normal percentage?
well, a lot of times you do 3-year averages of prior year's revenues.
Actuals.
The actuals of prior years, and if we look at that, and we also tend to look at staffing, the staffing change. Staff or revenue generating. Just the decrease. Typically,
We base it on 3-year average receipt.
yes.
The percentages that you give for dollars paid, is that the end of the line for those submissions? I think you said before that you may have to do corrections going into 6-month period of time. So I guess I'm wondering, as you look at those percentages, is that it? Is that all we're going to get? Or is there a possibility?
Well, I mean, there's always a possibility. Depends on, you know, insurance, like Medicare, you can go back a year. Medicaid is 90 days.
Sorry to interrupt. I think that question's answered
And then
on the top of page 3, right? That chart was introduced to answer that exact question. If over time, as those accounts are rebilled, even if it's received later, that blue portion of that column, those are funds received greater than 90 days, but they were received. And so that, I think the point there was to capture those. And that chart shows a significant increase, at least from the beginning of the year, in total revenues. Is that right?
yes, Thank you. I mean, I would assume that December of last year, that's probably pretty locked in. You know, even. There may be an increase, a dynamic chart or table. So it has changed from month to month. But there is a cutoff that at some point. Revenue from the claims that were submitted. There's another outlier, and I spoke to this before, and that is the denominator that we're using to come up with these percentages actually higher because we're rebilling some of these claims, and we're not able to run a report to separate out just the exact number of claims versus the number of claims plus the number of times the same claim has been rebilled because so this denominator is a little higher than what it should be because of that very reason.
Mr. Burke, you have your.
I guess I'm confused. with the Difference between the chart on this two and the chart. That you're measuring.
Well.
I mean, if you look at the bottom of page 2, those percentages aren't half bad. Which is the top of page 3.
But now it's measuring the dollar amounts instead of the number of services.
I think it's worth looking at the titles, because those titles are, it's unclear, what the titles we're referring to. I think you're right as far as the data is concerned. The titles are confusing. Sure. Anything else? Any other discussion? Mr. Oster.
The 90% goal to be built. That 90% of what you just adjusted to, what you figure you'll get, or what? The 90% of what you wanted to get before, even though you knew you would get that much.
That's a good question. So it gets complicated. You can look at it 2 different ways, right? So the 90% is probably what you would expect to get from exact payers. So even though they might have different pay rates, the 90%, you know, across the board would be, you know, you would kind of become familiar with what the rates are that payers pay. And that would be the expectation. So it would be 90% of your expectation.
So that's the 90%. Now that you've adjusted it, where you're billing, where you're graphing what you think you're going to get compared to what billing higher before.
I think the answer to your question is that 90% threshold is sort of the industry standard, best case scenario for reimbursement. When a clinic is billing based on what they expect to receive. So when you have your rates aligned with the APG rates and things, so we're in the process of adjusting to that level. To answer your question, that 90% is more, it's based on an aspirational future state. Does that kind of answer your question?
I know what you're saying. But
Okay.
it's still gold.
Any other questions for Mr. Ulrich? Mr. Burke?
I guess maybe to Glenn's point, is there any kind of a metric that we could look at, we could all understand how well we're doing as far as billing is concerned?
I mean, I always think it's good to know where we're at in terms of, you know, what our budget is and what our revenues, projected revenues are, and are we aligned with that, or are we exceeding that projection? I think that would be very good.
Sir?
So could we get something as simple as what, Renee Cole throws out? This was our sales tax goal. What we thought we were gonna get, or what we got the year before, or something similar we received. This month we received $9.57. So you know, if you build out $12.63, you got $9.57. We can kind of figure out the percentage, but then we can look at the budget and say, okay, we budgeted 5 million. We've gotten 4.75 million. We don't feel as bad about it as when we're looking at percentages. I think everybody is in, comes from a different background. So we all kind of quantify percentages differently. Like in a retail position, 45% is not good. And we want to know what that's about and why you've got 90% projected and 70, you know, those sorts of numbers. If we had, my budget is 4, we projected that we would get 4, we've got 3. We're good. Then that's a number system everybody gets. Is that possible? I don't even know if that's possible, but if that's possible, that would be lovely.
I mean,
Even if you give it to us as an email. Just so everybody can quantify the numbers. Thank you. But the rest of your report was lovely.
Any other discussion? Thank you. Next, we have vacancy review.
So vacancy this month, we had 13 positions that were reviewed. One that you'll see tonight, and I'm sorry, 8 that you'll see tonight on this agenda, and 1 on the operations committee, and then 4 at finance. One of the things I would remark, and then I'll share the statistics I bring to you, is that we started to hear more this month, and certainly Legislator Kern or Faith had mentioned, or Perkins, that individuals were moving within departments, that the majority of those discussions didn't involve a resignation because of more pay, which has been a lot of the discussion over the past months. It was nice to hear some changes within departments. Certainly, the backfill of those positions is somewhat painful because it is difficult to fill many of our positions. However, that was a change that I observed and I think was shared by the group. Happy to see that happen, to see folks stay within the organization, even if they're trying either similar work in a different department or something altogether different. That being said, for September, we have 76 at the start of the month, vacant positions. It excludes temporary and part-time positions. That's roughly about 8%, almost 9% of our workforce. We are, since we've just reset, so last month you heard my annual report, so we've reset, and so with all of these 13 going forward for your consideration, that brings us at the moment to 100% immediate fill. That being said, also wanted to share with you the probationary positions that the board has granted me authority to continue to be filled should they become vacant, and the temporary positions when needed. For the year, we're at 85 of those, with 52 being that the position was vacated prior to the year or the probationary period being complete. The temporary positions, which as you'll recall are only 3 or 6 months in duration, that number is at 27. So if you can think about the latitude provided, that's 85 positions that otherwise would have had to come before you every single month. And so I think you've been able to expedite positions that came vacant for whatever reason, and you had just considered them. Or in fact, are temporary to alleviate, to either bring someone in ahead of retirement or to alleviate a higher pressure time for workload in the department. So certainly that continues to be appreciated by departments. So on this agenda, we have first up, apologies, is public health.
This position, was due to
resolutions on this agenda.
So the senior court position, that was, vacant due to a promotion, to senior welfare examiner Medicaid. This position is, with various responsibilities within Medicaid units, kind of keeping the flow and, ensuring that, we meet our obligations.
Any questions?
The next, we have Medicaid that was principal social welfare examiner that was due to retirement. This individual is responsible for unit operations, ensuring that we're meeting regulations, requirements, signing off on various paperwork, and keeps the unit running. The next is an employment and it's vacated due to a promotion to senior social welfare examiner and TA and staff. The employment position assists individuals that are referred over from TA and staff with identifying individuals who are good candidates for employment and then getting them suitable for employment. And they are essentially working on a whole number of different aspects, not just employment, but with that comes the readiness to employment, which includes substance use issues, anything that might be a barrier to someone who's capable of employment gaining employment. The next is the secretary one in the TA staff unit that is vacant due to the retirement. Again, in this position, they are assisting with the general operation of the TA staff program and assisting social welfare examiners, supervisors and other staff with meeting our requirements. The next we have in children's services due to resignation. This is for a caseworker position within the CPS.
Just a comment, I know we've heard this before. I saw a new face over at the Office for the Aging last week. And actually, it was some, I believe it may have been this position. She indicated that she had worked for Child Protector. So when we had the reason vacated resignation, is there any way that we can change that to transfer or something rather than?
Well, we actually had that conversation because this was one of the first times that it was prominent enough to have the dialogue about doing that. We certainly have.
The next is also for a casework position within the CPS unit. This individual promoted to senior. So the last one was actually in preventative. The last one is in CPS. And that's the individual promoted to position.
And next on the committee reports. Board of Health, Ms. Curran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We last met in June. Our next meeting is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Please do this. Have an update for you after that.
Thank you. CDP Board of Directors, Mr. Burke.
the TDP meeting this Friday. I have a few updates. They are struggling to have a sufficient number of children in the Head Start program that meet the eligibility criteria. We shared that with grant folks, but it's not the first year that that's a challenge. The other thing they're trying, yes, it's a good conversation. on teachers. Receives voters. Grant. IDA. Weatherization. Funding is there. Over the summer, with the addition of the grant. Loan program, here. Which is up 30 last year. Basically.
Thank you. Legislator Haggard, do you have anything from the community service?
Thank you. I don't have much to add to this presentation tonight, but we did meet on the 5th September. Our next meeting is on the 3rd October. We have 3 very interesting presentations for grant money and okay, thank you.
So, Misha, Office for the Aging Advisory Board.
Thank you, Chair. We, excuse me, we met Monday, September 11th. It was actually a very short meeting because there are a number of folks that are normally there were away statewide. But Andrea did discuss the, actually, she provided the nutrition update to those of us who were there, the same one that she had provided to the board. And it was discussed that there was an uptick in COVID cases. And it also talked about scams that are targeted at older Americans. You know, essentially, when you get the call from someone that is struggling with English, and they tell you that they're from the Social Security or from Medicaid, Medicare, the best thing to do is hang up the phone. Next meeting is Monday, November 6th. I am.
I don't believe we have legislators from Ellie on the line right now. So we'll postpone her report from Youth Advisory Board. Is there any old business? Any new business? Haggard.
Yes, last Thursday I had the opportunity to go to a ribbon cutting in Potsdam for a new company called Ombra, OMBRA, software company that is relocating or opening an office in Potsdam. And there are other offices in Tampa, Florida. Now, if that seems weird, it's because the principal of this company is from Messina and selected Potsdam. But the great thing about it for our county is that they are selecting several interns from Clarkson to come and work at the company and then provide possible employment after those internships. And I think it's a wonderful example of somebody coming back and giving back to the community, but stopping the brain drain from St. Lawrence County. So I wanted to welcome them.
Next, that's great to see. Mr. Forsyth.
Well, speaking of brain drain, I went to the electric charging station on Friday or Tuesday last week in Potsdam. I was impressive. They had a Tesla and they had the rapid charger system. They do it in combination with Stewart, Sunoco, NIPA, and there was one other organization. Pretty impressive. They also had a little one, I guess it was more both way gas and E vehicle down at the NISAC, but very clean. Looks user friendly and learned a lot from it.
Ready to get an electric plow truck?
Get recharged.
Ms. Curry.
Just got an update from Ms. Terminelli, if you'll allow me.
Yeah, go for it.
She said because Carol is continuing to partner with the People Project, we're pushing out into schools to do the Gizmo project for the third and fourth graders. The application's open for youth team funding. So to people, it's listed somewhere, we'll find it for you. There's a Zoom meeting being held on October 6th about the youth team funding. And the applications are due by October 16th. Their next meeting is going to be November 7th.
Thank you. Is there any further old or new business? Our executive session for services will be held in conjunction with the following operations meeting. If there is no further business, I get a motion to adjourn. Sorry. Yeah, perfect.
I was like, the town- Can I get an approval of the agenda? All in favor?
Like,
May I have an approval of the minutes of August 13th? Mr. Jeanette and Mr. Perkins, any discussion of those or anything you'd like amended? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First up is probation. We have an agenda declaring October Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Jeanette and Mrs. Haggard.
So I offer this resolution on behalf of the Domestic Violence Task Force, which I'm a member of. The theme this year is the same as last year. Everyone knows someone. This is more prevalent, I think, since COVID. The number of domestic violence cases have skyrocketed. Renewal House is going to be the lead agency again. They're going to do their normal propaganda. There's going to be a. That's wrong word.
Community education.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's that.
Coach,
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
And they're gonna have people set up in the lobby. Courthouse.
We'll get a date. Okay. Does anyone have any- Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any? Thank you. At dinner, have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with New York State officials of Homeland Security for a fiscal year 23 emergency management performance grant, moved by Mr. Forsythe, seconded by Mr. Jeanette and Mr. Denisha. Go right ahead, sir.
Good evening. This grant that I'm in front of you, like Rita was saying, is fiscal year emergency management performance grant. This is a grant we apply for every year. This grant we put towards the salaries for our admin staff. In order to use that for salaries, everybody has to complete ICS classes and emergency management classes.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Denner? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have a 2024 solar eclipse presentation. Do you have slides there?
I do.
Okay.
We have Mr. Reagan's music to go along with.
Do you have your list, Jim?
I've already handed it out. Everyone should have it.
excuse me.
I'm gonna stand up here that way I can see the slides as we go. Start singing too.
Could you?
All right, one thing that we've been kind of pushing and letting everybody know is we do have a solar eclipse coming in 2024. So I put together a small presentation. You guys also should have got your shared drive, a copy of the emergency management plan that I wrote for this event. Hopefully everybody got a chance to look it over. Next slide, please. All right, on the agenda that I have, like I said, we'll go through it quick because I know this is the second meeting of the night. We're going to talk about the history of the total eclipse, the path that it's taken, the timelines, the challenges, the opportunities, the preparedness effort that New York State's going through, the preparedness effort that I think St. Lawrence County should go through, what our next step for public safety is going to be, and some of the resources that we have. Next one. So as you can see, the last one was in June 24th of 2025. This one is going to be in April 8th of 24, which is going to be a total, not like some of the others were partial. And then the next one's not expected to be 2,144 in October 26th. I won't be around for that one, but hopefully we'll all be here for this one. This is the path that it's taken. One more. So if you look at this in the United States, it's kind of hard to see, but it shows the path that it's going. But the direct center line is going up the Route 3 corridor of St. Lawrence County. So the next one, please. So this is more of what you can see in St. Lawrence County. So as you see, the red line is the center, the blue is where it's going to be the total eclipse, which some of the facts that we got coming up, St. Lawrence County will be one of the few counties that will have a total eclipse here. Excellent. This is a little video that I found. It's kind of going to show you the path that it's going. As you can see, it's going to be coming up from Buffalo. We're predicted to be 3.5 minutes of total eclipse.
Will be dark.
For 3.5 minutes.
That's long. Chickens.
Okay, next slide, please. These are some of the challenges and the opportunities that present here because of this. So one of the challenges is transportation. So egress. I don't know if you're all aware, but there really isn't a pillow available for the days around this in St. Lawrence County. They booked all the way around the Adirondacks, all the way up to Ogdensburg. So they're booking up fast. So if they know one that's open, it does not last long. One of the other challenges is cell phone coverage. St. Lawrence County doesn't have the best cell phone coverage currently right now, especially up the Route 3 corridor, up in Star Lake and Gregory Lake up to Pearson. They have issues already contacting 911. A lot of them don't have cell phones or home phones anymore. They rely on their cell phones. So now we have an issue during the summertime when the summer residents come in and take up a lot of bandwidth on the cell towers. We're expected to anywhere between 50 to 150,000 people in St. Lawrence County following this thing on the way through. This numbers came from the predictions of the other solar eclipses that have happened. Hospitality, like I said, the rooms are booked, restaurants running out of food. On the past one that they had that come through by Buffalo, they had restaurants that completely ran out of food. They weren't anticipating as many people coming through as they had. Another thing is mass gathering. There's going to be potentially a lot of people coming through the county, a lot. Like I said, anywhere between 50 to 150,000. Next slide. Some of the opportunities, it's great for tourism for St. Lawrence County, marketing, especially the index, as that's going to be the center. Economic benefit of all these people that are coming through, spending money at the gas stations, restaurants, hotels, grocery stores and whatnot. Education for our kids, K through 12, they're never going to be in school to watch something like this come through and happen again. And another for the emergency management side. It's a unique exercise that we have put plans together. The opportunity that normally we do stuff like this on simulation tabletop, we're actually going to have to do in real life. So some of the efforts is what New York State did is they formed a task force that kind of a lot of the things that they're predicting going to happen, how they want to handle. We do have quite a few. I mentioned the cell phone. Cell phones just one, but there are many more concerns that I have of this coming through. So they established a task force. They got a committee to address specific efforts that they're going to do coming forward, and they developed a website so they can track where other counties and the efforts of the counties. On the planning aspect, there's 29 counties in New York State that this is going to hit the path of. St. Lawrence County is one. Only 9 is that the Senate's going through the county. St. Lawrence County is one. 20 of which part of the area where it's going to be high viewing demand. Again, St. Lawrence County is on that list also. This is kind of hard to see, but this lists all our towns and municipalities in St. Lawrence County. So it tells you the approximate time it's coming, when it's going to start, the duration, when it's going to end. So if you see most of them over here are anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. The time frame this is happening is right when our kids are on buses getting dropped off to school. So some of the considerations and the concern that is here we have buses out when it's completely dark at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We already have drivers now that are passing school buses with its lights on. So one of the efforts that I do have in plan is to contact schools. Next, hold on, Mr. Reagan.
Some of the schools are are working on plans to hold their kids over so they can watch the total eclipse. And they've already got the safety glasses for the kids to wear, and they've got plans to make this an educational event. So I'll let you know that.
Next slide, please. So this is, again, the map, and it shows the time as it's coming, not just the county, but through the whole state. And that's hitting. Next slide. Some of the considerations, local coordination between the county level and municipalities to see what they're going to do. They can coordinate, what our efforts and what we're going to do on our end, on the county end. Form a planning task force with some of the key partners that are going to be addressed. Planning is obviously one, Chamber of Commerce should be one. And some municipalities that are willing to engage, and like I said earlier, engage in the school districts on the education piece on what they plan on doing. Next slide, please. Public safety is a huge one. We're going to have this many people. A lot of you have been up Route 3, Star Lake. So if you imagine 15,000 people going up Route 3, the 2 gas stations, and the only gas stations have bathrooms. It's a lot of people that are going to be viewing this, and a lot of them chase this. And this has been proven from the last ones that everybody else had had. So all these concerns have come from other states and counties that they saw when it hit that. We have, like I said, a limited number of resources that we hear, in some gas stations, stuff up that way. Determine the public and non-public viewing areas. So we get these people coming in April 8th, and they're going to want places to view. You know what I mean? So should we advertise? Should we work with some municipalities on places for them to view? Or are they just going to be pulled over to the side of the road, which is more traffic accident? Now we got emergency vehicles trying to get on the road where we got vehicles parked on both sides. Huge traffic jams for the map. And then the weather. What's the weather going to be? Depending on the weather, it's April. We've all lived up here for a long time. We know how the weather can be in April. Very unpredictable. Next slide. And public safety, next up. Identify our partner agencies that we need to work with. DOT, DPWs, law enforcement, fire, EMS. Identify some of our resources that we have that are available for us to help us do this. One is maybe some portable cell phone towers that we can strategically stage throughout the county to help with the surge that's coming through. Essential awareness, just make sure that everybody knows what's going on, what's going to happen. And a lot of them is like our public offices here in the county, hospitals. What's going to be like for patients and their staff when this happens. And then share the information that we get and share the plan if we choose to adopt them here at the county level, and what our plan is and what everybody else is doing here at the state, county, and all that. Some of the resources we have. New York State has a website dedicated to the solar eclipse. There's also the American Astronomical Society Solar Eclipse Task Force that's on there, and then of course NASA. That's our track. Any questions?
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Benner. That was very interesting. I don't want to compare this to Woodstock, but I'm going to. And Woodstock, people made their reservations, people, whatever. Now, I could see people calling hotels right now, making reservations, planning it all out. There's going to be a contingency of people that say, let's drive up there. That's, and I could see an influx of people that don't have a hotel to stay in. They're coming up here. And have they addressed that or considered that at all?
That's all part of the plan that's in your shared drive. We do have people right now, some of the hotels are calling us, asking if we have a current list, a list of places to stay. Because a lot of places people are calling are full here in the county and other counties next to us.
So I could imagine law enforcement.
So you're gonna have people that are going to follow us, where they're gonna sleep, probably in their cars.
Okay,
Pitching tents or whatnot.
thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Hall.
Is there a rain date scheduled for the eclipse?
I'm not.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Mr. Denisha.
And Matt, I think you've hit it. I think the actual event, the people that are here, the people that have come up early, what's going to be the big problem is going to be is the influx of additional people that are trying to come up for the day to look at it, and that same number of people that are going to be leaving. So I don't think it's going to be No, that's great for the motels, the hotels, for the lodging, for the restaurants. I think where the big issue is gonna be traffic.
Places for people to park off the road.
Mr. Reagan, did you have your hand up?
Just on something different, I just wanted to, had the opportunity to be a victim at the emergency mass casualty training event the other day that Mr. Denner helped organize, and it was a very well-run event. They got Contour Airline to provide one of their planes for the some of the victims. They had some of my Key Club kids laying on the pavement underneath the plane, calling for help, along with me. And I just want to commend Matt and the 16 or so agencies that turned out and worked together. They triage something like close to 50 people in a short time and got the most serious ones to the hospital. And it was a very well organized event, and hopefully they'll never have to use the training. But we all know that things happen, and I commend them for the great job they did.
Anybody else? All right, thank you very much. Next up, we have the Board of Elections. Jenny Bacon and Tom Nichols. No, Tom? Oh, he's online. Oh, hi, sorry. Tom is online. So we have a resolution modifying the 2023 Board of Elections budget. Technology innovation and resources tier grants moved by Mr. Jeanette, seconded by Ms. Taggart.
This is just moving money from the grant. We put it all into technical equipment when we received the grant, but in order to pay for the clear ballot system that we got, we need software and other fees and services so that we can pay for clear ballots, and we have already received.
Any questions on it? Mr. Nichols, did you have anything to say? No. Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Jenny. Next up, we have information technologies and research. I have a resolution proclaiming October as Cybersecurity Awareness Month in St. Clair County. Moved by that. I think the book we got at night, the educational about cyber attack for like 3rd or 4th grade reading level for your protege, so that it's something that you like to be, well, maybe you can get followed. And
make it. This is the 3rd time I've presented this resolution. Every October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This year marks the 20th Cybersecurity Awareness Month proclamation. This year's theme, as you can see, is it's easy to stay safe online. The reason I think that this is very important, and I'd like to thank all of you and Mrs. Doyle for your collective support. I'm pleased with our cybersecurity posture, but I never rest about it, not ever. There's always more to do. I thank you for your support. Because of that support, we're able to do a lot of very positive things and get rid of things in place and increase the cybersecurity posture here at the county. And of course, our county employees take this knowledge home
and they can be safer there as well. Very excited about all of that. We will be sharing additional information. There's a site, for example, staysafeonline.org with wonderful resources. So on our My SLC page, we're sharing information and working with my team and our new chief information security officer for additional ideas, whether it's the distribution of material for things made available. Excited about it.
I can't think of the name of this type of thing, but where they get an employee's name and then they call the IT department and say something about, there's a specific name for this type of phishing, right? And all of our names are on the website. Many of the employees of the county are on the website. There's some way to avoid that was massive. I mean, people couldn't check into hotels. It was a huge thing. It's like, and if you would, thank you.
It's called spear phishing. We've actually gotten a couple of instances of it here in the last several years. The short answer to the question is, can we prevent it? No, we cannot. The main reason for all of this education is the main attack vector. The latest statistics I saw at the NISAC conference, they were presented is 92% ransomware attacks come through email. That is somebody clicking on something they shouldn't. That is why we are absolutely adamant about our security awareness training, about everybody taking it. We do phishing tests every month. They are awful. They are tricky. And if you click, you've got to do remedial training. It's, you know, people say that's a pain. Yes, it is. It's not as big a pain as costing the county millions of dollars because you accidentally clicked on ransomware.
Thanks. Rick, in the 20th year, do you know why October is the month?
I do not.
I find it interesting because I think all 12 months.
Well,
would be
yes.
the month for cybersecurity. And even more on a local point, Claxon, Hepburn, and Carthage, I still don't think they're back full steam. So, you know, it happens. It happened. That happened in September. So maybe next year we'll do it in September. But, you know, 12 months, I think you got to be aware of this because it's catastrophic. You know, even if it didn't cost them millions in ransom, it's costing them millions in loss of everything. So.
Mr. Webster.
A lot of this has to do with someone from IT calling you up and saying, you know, someone like us, saying, yeah, we're calling you from IT. We need to do something to your computer or your reset your password and give the information. You guys would never do that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so if someone calls you looking for it, get a number and call them back.
Well, and you know, that's a great point, and it lies at the heart of how we need to work all of these things, where if information comes to you in a way that is out of the ordinary, never accepted at face value, and go the ordinary path to substantiate, whether that is via an email, a phone call, what have you, make absolutely sure that it was indeed Ruth Doyle who asked me to mitigate the transfer of $5.3 million to pay a vendor. I mean, but these are the types of things that they do.
Next up, Mr. Denisha.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Rick, once in a while, I'll get an email. It's from an unknown sender. They'll say, do you want to block, release, or permit?
Yes.
So what I don't do either. I just delete it.
when you see, and thank you for pointing that out, that's a great point, Larry. So our email filtering system, it's called Mimecast. In addition to, there's stuff that it knows is bad, that you never see it, we never see it. Then there are things that like, I'm not sure about this. You'll get an email with those things listed, as you have described, Larry. And it says, do you want to release it? That means just for this one time, let it come through, let me see what it is. Permit it, which means, no, I know this sender, we're good. Let all future emails from that sender come through. Or block, which is, don't want to be bothered, don't trust it, never want to see anything from this sender again. It's totally up to you, what you want to do with those. It is in queue, and it's asking you to pick between those. I would say if you're not sure, just block it.
Anyone else have a question? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up. And today is Kenai Knowlton's. She's great. So I have this resolution modifying 2023 budget for the Sheriff's Office for automotive expensive and full fuel charges. Mr. Forsythe and Mr. Holmes. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. So, as everybody else is going through some overages on their accounts due to inflation, some of the reasons why we have these money is the SRD vehicles, or school resource deputies vehicles that we put on. That's additional 3 vehicles that we have to maintain. We had some snowmobile repair last winter that needed to be done. We also had our pickup truck last year that was damaged extensively in the Christmas Eve storm, if you all remember that. We're still waiting for FEMA reimbursement on, that needs to be paid. And the bigger part of this is the gas prices have just skyrocketed, inflation for our fleet of vehicles that put miles on transports or complaints. So due to that, we're have some shortages. Luckily, I have some jail monies from hires that weren't completed right away, that we have $105,000 to pay for both the automotive expensive and charges. Take our monies out of the jail account and put them into the criminal account of this overage.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the Sheriff's Office for revenue received from New York State for the state relief and it includes by. With that, seconded by Mr. Burke and Mr. Burke. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So this is, we'll get every year from state readies, so explaining state readies for the new legislators. When someone gets sentenced in our facility, the state has 10 days to accept those individuals that are sentenced to the state prison. After the 10-day period, if there's any days over that, we charge the state for holding those inmates at our average cost daily for each inmate. So this year, our calculation is almost $8,000 for our state readies that we're getting back from the state.
How much do they pay us again?
The formula changes monthly, but it's around $100 a day. It can be 95 to 105, just fluctuates the number of inmates and other classifications that are, there's a formula. So we're in the $100 range for.
Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the New York State Office of Homeland Security to accept the fiscal year 23 State Homeland Security Preparedness Grant and modify the 2023 budgets for the Sheriff's Office and the Office of Emergency Services. Moved by Mr. Jeanette, second by Mr. Denisha, Mr. Burke.
So this grant is twofold. It's for our offices along with EMS services. We use it for our technical equipment, our Stillman's complaint system. If you remember, in early 2020, we went to the Spillman system, where almost all the municipalities went, other than Governor, went to the system. That pays for our technical equipment and our maintenance, radio equipment is paid out of this. All of our communication services, which we have many to relate here, probably 20. So all those are paid through this grant, you know, nice on this part.
You pretty much covered it.
Any questions for the sheriff or Mr. Denner? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, motion carries. Last but not least, I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the sheriff's office for a 2022 state criminal alien assistance program funding from the Bureau of Justice Department. Moved by Mr. Jeanette and Mr. Perkins. Go ahead, sir.
Again, this is something we do yearly. It's a staff grant, it's a federal grant for certain inmates that are in our facility. Through their classification, we get monies back from the federal government. You'll see the figure of 10,542. Of that, we get 8,222. The rest is paid by the paid just benefits. That's the people that do this grant. It's a pretty extensive grant. They do the grant writing and all the monies are transferred to us. So it's a pretty good bang for our buck that they do all the services, but we get most of the monies back. So I'm asking that to accept this 10,542.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And sorry, I hadn't turned the page, sir. I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the sheriff's office for overtime expense in the criminal division, moved by Mr. Jeanette and Mr. Forsythe and Mr. Perkins. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So many contributing factors to our overages. One being that we usually don't put enough in here anyway, so we put some in contingency to try to get that back and try to meet the goal, but usually every year we don't. We've had a lot of increase in complaints this year for many reasons. We had 3 cadets in the academy earlier in the year, so we had to backfill them. Our most recent thing that really put a crunch in our overtime was our recent manhunt. You remember Russell? Many people don't know, but we were looking for that individual for about a month. And because of the dangerousness of the situation, I had a lot of resources and a lot of boots on the ground for that detail. Thankfully, it turned out, in a positive direction. But that did take a lot of money to pay for that. So I'm looking to increase our overages on the criminal division using 50,000 out of our, again, jail monies that we didn't pay workers and some out of the contingency fund that we set up to in case there is an overage.
Any questions, Mr. Sheriff?
Aye.
Next up, we have the county clerks, Ms. Sandy Canmore. I have a resolution modifying the 2023 budget for the county clerk's office for overtime costs of the Department of Motor Vehicles. Moved by Mr. Jeanette and Mr. Burke and Mr. Forsythe. Go ahead, Madam.
So I'm asking to move the 22,500 that we put in contingency at the beginning of the year to my overtime. We've used about 35,000 in overtime costs already this year. Mostly due to being busy over the summer. I've had 3 full-time employees out most of the summer. And so with that, both
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I have a resolution authorizing the chair to sign a contract with the New York State Defenders Association for the public defender case management system, moved by Mr. Forsythe and by Mr. Jeanette, Mr. Newton.
This is our case management system that we've had in place. There really says we through the years for our reporting to ILS. They want these to simplify those reports. and make it easier on us. My hope is to upgrade this from to a different system that they have shortly, but we're not there yet. That's just.
Any questions for Mr. McDaniel? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next up, I have a proclamation. I wondered, Mrs. Haggard, if you would be so kind as to read that slide.
I'd be happy to, thank you. I offer a resolution, this chair, bringing October 15th, 2023 is Global Hand Washing Day in St. Lawrence County and move for its adoption.
Seconded by Mr. Jeanette, Mr. Burke. And would you like to speak? You don't have to, I
Would
would.
I like to? I think it's very important. I recently read an article about a little kid that came in from the playground and put his hand in a petri dish, and it was disgusting. So I can only imagine what we spread hand to hand that people get sick from. It's pretty bad out there. And I will say, I think people have become much more cognizant of the importance of it since the pandemic. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? Mr. Denisha?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I was thinking about this. I saw this resolution. And since the start of COVID, somewhere through there, my wife and I have got the dispensers for the hand sanitizers. They put in a cup holder for the vehicle. And so anytime we get gas, that's the very first thing, you go back in the car and give it a couple pumps, you know, and sanitize your hands. You have no idea what the person that used that pump before, you know, where they've had their hands, what they've been doing. So, yeah, I think it's a good resolution, and I guess I would encourage anyone who's got a couple in your car, get some a pump bottle of hand sanitizer.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I would say hand washing goes all the way back to Florence Nightingale, who is the mother of sanitation in the hospital. There was a time when doctors would be in working on cadavers, doing autopsies, and then when someone was in labor, she noticed they would run right over to deliver the baby. And the babies that were born of the mothers that were delivered by the doctors who had just been over in the morgue had much higher mortality rates with postpartum fever and uterine infections, and the babies had infections too. So she started making the doctors wash their hands between the time where they went from the morgue working on people who had passed away over to the labor and delivery to deliver a baby. And she noted how much the postpartum fever improvement in rates. As most of you have heard of Florence Nightingale, she's really the mother of kind of infectious disease and stuff in our practice. And arguably, this is one of the most cost-effective things we can do to break the chain of transmission of infections in hospitals, in the public, just in general, and in places where they really have poor sanitation. And worldwide, it is amazing what it will do for communities in terms of, contact disease transmission, getting rid of it. It's 20 minutes of scrubbing, 10 on the front, 10 on the back, clean water, drying your hands on clean paper towels, and use that paper towel to shut off the knobs on your sink. But I think it's one of the most helpful things that we could promote. And I thank you for your patience on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have vacancy committee. There is one department, one sheriff's office, to present one position on this agenda tonight. Sheriff?
So I have an account clerk at the promotion in the county. Hated to lose her. She was an excellent employee, did an excellent job. She's an account clerk. We have two account clerks, one senior and one account clerk. Those that don't know, the sheriff's office is mandated to run the civil division, all sheriffs in the state and the counties. And they have to be open to the public 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It takes at least two account clerks to run that business. And it is a revenue maker for the county. We used to have three. one time, we're down to two. And then when I'm down to one, I have to backfill with either deputy or a chief, my chief officer. So definitely needed, do a lot of paperwork, receipts, accounts, there's numerous things that these clerks do daily. And I'm looking at those.
Any questions for the sheriff? Sheriff. County administrator report. Just a couple of items, give you an update on, I did want to go back to Legislator Burke's request at the other meeting with regard to exit interviews. That document is in your board, they're updated to have, I believe, through September 1st of 2023 information. So once you have a chance to take a look at that, if you have any questions or concerns, let us know. Briefly, want to let you know that the NISAC conference was a success. 3 legislators attended and 5 staff. The standing committee that I chair is tax and finance, and we took up 2 issues. One that has not moved forward for several years now, which is the tax collection, sales tax collection on short-term rentals. But the other issue that we took up was the NREM tax foreclosure delinquency, and I invited County Attorney Button, and we had Greene County Attorney Ed Kaplan join us for that discussion. And they did not disappoint. They had a well-informed discussion with a captive audience, which built up also for a very much longer discussion in the afternoon with a panel on the same topic. I think that the folks there felt there was a very a great opportunity to have ask questions in a more informal setting, be able to get answers. I think that a lot of counties are moving through their auctions as we are right now. And so that gave them much more real-time knowledge, and both attorneys did an outstanding job. So that was, I think, a very real-time issue. I know that our chairman attended and will be requesting that information be provided to you about the conference. I also have all the resolutions, so I'll share those with you. And if any appeal to you, some of the legislators who attended have asked me to move those forward next month. But certainly any are always welcome. We can tweak them to St. Lawrence County's interest, collect a little bit of data, and include that for board consideration in the near future. That's it. That's it. Okay. On to committee reports.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Mrs. Tyler.
I had the privilege of attending the afternoon session where there were 2 attorneys and 2 other people. And I have to say that we should be very proud of our county attorney. He did an amazing job. And everybody, it was like a rapt audience. And so storytelling was excellent. Thank you for being there, and thank you for the great job you did.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, we'll move on to committee reports. Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board, Mr. Denisha.
Madam Chair, we have not had a meeting since my last report. However, our next meeting is this week, 5 to 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Mr. Burke, Alternative for Conservation Board.
There's nothing new.
Mrs. Haggard, Legislator Haggard, Board of Trustee for Supreme Court Library.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. We meet once a year in June. We had that meeting and the report was issued and finalized and dispersed to the legislators. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board had a quick meeting. What was that in August? When they had that at the end of August. And the next meeting is 9/26 at 6 o'clock. Okay. And so once we get through that, I'll bring that back. Thank you. The Environmental Management Council, Mrs. Renelli is not here, so we'll defer that. Fire Advisory Board, Mr. Denisha.
Madam Chair, same, we had our last meeting in August, reported on that. So the next meeting is Thursday, October 19th.
Jury Board, Mr. Sheridan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The jury board does nothing to report.
Thank you very much. Planning Board, Mr. Fay.
We had our September meeting last Thursday, September 14th. Number of projects were sent back for local action.
one we had complete review on was that I think is pretty good news that everybody might know on Route 11 where we got the largest American flag in St. Lawrence County about at Fraser Automotive there. Fraser Automotive is now closed and it's going to become a restaurant. The Fraser is basically building a restaurant on the site. If you are familiar with the site, as you drive by, the office for the car dealership was in an old farmhouse there. It's going to be torn down and the restaurant's going to be put in by Mr. Fraser and it's going to be leased. And hopefully we're going to have a new restaurant in the town of Canton. That was awful positive, and along with that, there was a long discussion on batteries and their solar panels, and it was informative, and there's still a lot to be learned there. Yep. I thought it was a very good meeting. And I guess that's I guess the restaurant is going to be 40 by 70, and if people are familiar with the site, it drops off in the back, so it'll be moved back a little bit towards the back end of the property, and two things are going to be done there too. At Fraser Computers or next door, that property has been leased to Boston. It was okay, whatever you call it. So it was interesting to see that we're going to have hopefully a restaurant in Canton.
Anybody else? Thank you. Now on to old and new business. Any old business that anyone has to bring? Anyone have new business? I have something. I went to NISAC. I went to the emergency services meeting there. They have a resolution that was put before the Assembly and Senate, which passed, which deals with direct pay ambulance services. The importance of it is as a situation if Bob goes to the hospital and he has emergency coverage for ambulance service. Right now, under most insurances, the check goes to Bob. Bob can A, sign the check over to the emergency services people who picked him up, or option B, Bob can put it in his bank account and say, oh, I have $1,500. Sometimes some services that spoke have people that regularly take an ambulance in, sign out, and get their check a few times a month. It's affecting people's bottom line. Waddington said to me, it represents somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 a year in people that they know get checks and don't give them to them. And that's just Waddington, which is a very small department. Not, I don't think it's not large call volume, right? And it probably substantiates a good portion of their budget. So they urged all of us to bring this resolution that they had put through back and pass it, asking Governor Hochul, whose desk this is very close to. I don't know that it's on it, but it's passed both areas and has now been forwarded to her office for her contemplation. And so they're asking that we pass a resolution and send letters of support for this. The people that run AMR ambulance service, which covers up as far as part of Bladeville and Watertown, tell me that it's a huge portion of their budget. And they could do a lot more training and a lot more education were they to have this payment. So we will bring it to you under the resolution, right? You have the packet of resolutions that went through, and we'll bring it, bring it to finance. Finance, if you don't mind. If anybody has, if no one has a problem with us kind of pushing it forward to finance, just because it's money for other people, it doesn't affect our budget. But in the long term, it may very well help our county provide the services that we're having problems. Does anyone have any questions? I know Matt knows about this, if you want to direct anything to Matt.
When you drafted that, like, added it to those, I think it's very important.
Anyone's welcome to be It's just, they've done a lot of work. I couldn't believe, I don't off the top of my head remember how much money they were talking about, but it was millions statewide that is being pocketed by people, and the insurance companies don't even have a problem with it because they're already paying money out. They just want it to go where it's supposed to go, so. Nothing else. Does anybody else have any new business? Seeing none, I guess we have a need for executive session. We do for appointments and personnel, which is the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Okay. Oh, sorry. Motion by Mr. Hall, second by Mr. Schneider. Okay, back in executive session. May I get a motion to adjourn at this moment?
So